Chapter 6 starts out with an account of the Middle Ages, the period in which a distinctive European culture began to emerge. It starts with the Germanic and Islamic invasions, contrasts the West with the East, the Byzantine civilization, and traces the further development of the Church. It then describes the kingdom of the Franks, the Merovingian and Carolingian dynasties, the breakup of the empire built by Charlemagne, and finally the development of feudal society. After the Battle of Adrianople in 378, the Roman Empire was unable to resist foreign invasions. Visigoths, Huns, and Vandals succeeded in disrupting the empire and upon occasion even invading Rome itself. But the barbarians, who were already Christians, were willing to learn from the people that they conquered. The Latin language, Nicene language of Christianity, and Roman law all survived. The Eastern Empire, also called the Byzantine Empire, survived until 1453. It was composed of over 1,500 cities, the greatest of which was Constantinople. Imperial policy was always to centralize government by imposing legal and doctrinal conformity throughout, and Justinian's revision of Roman law contributed to this process. Justinian also sought to reconquer the imperial provinces lost to the barbarians in the west. His campaigns ultimately exhausted the empire financially, and plague hit Constantinople. The chapter focuses on the spread of Byzantine Christianity and the Byzantine Empire's attempts to resist Persian and Islamic invasions. Islamic armies overran much of the empire, resulting in the loss of Syrian, Egypt, and North Africa. The reduced empire was then restructured with provincial governments under the direct authority of imperial generals. The Byzantine Empire was never again to regain its former strength, as it came under constant attack by the Turks. In the south, Muhammad, 570 to about 632, began the faith of Islam. The basic tenets of Islam are summarized including the distinctions between the two major Islamic groups, the Shia and the Sunni. Within the next century, the Muslims conquered the southern and eastern coastlines of the Mediterranean and occupied parts of Spain. The Mediterranean was controlled by the Muslims until the 11th century, and east-west trade decreased significantly. But the Muslim advance on the land was stopped in the east by Leo III at Constantinople, and in the west by Charles Martel in 732. Despite the hostility of the Christian West to the Islamic world, there was much creative interchange between these cultures, and the West has profited greatly from it. The West was exposed to and has benefited from the goods, agricultural techniques, medical innovations, and literary masterpiece of the Muslim world. The Church survived the invasions as a weakened and compromised institution, but it still had an effective administration and a growing army of monks who proved to be of peculiar strength. The origin and development of monasticism is here related, as is the doctrine of papal primacy and the religious break between East and West. It revolved around questions of doctrinal authenticity, such as papal primacy and the clause of the Nicene Creed, also the iconoclastic controversy, among other factors. The chapter continues with the foundation of the Frankish monarchy by Clovis, an ineffective Merovingian rule in Gaul. Effective power was wielded by the mayor of the palace, a position that was held by such men as Pepin I, Charles Martel, and finally Pepin the Short, who founded the Carolingian monarchy. In 755, Pepin the Short defeated the Lombards, who had driven the Pope from Rome, and he gave the Pope the Papal States, the land surrounding Rome. Charlemagne, 768 to 814, continued his father's policies of expansion in the north and protection of the Pope in Italy. When he died, the Frankish kingdom embraced an area approximately equal to that of the common market. Charlemagne governed his kingdom through counts who were responsible for maintaining local armies, collecting tribute or taxes, and administering justice. In order to assure justice and maintain control of his counts, Charlemagne sent out the Missi Dominici, who inspected his realm. He himself traveled constantly. A substantial part of the wealth accumulated by conquest was used to attract scholars to Aachen, where Ausunian of York was the director of the palace school. The school was intended to upgrade the administrative skills of officials in the royal bureaucracy, but it also led to a modest rebirth of scholarship. The chapter then chronicles the breakup of Charlemagne's empire after his death. Despite all his efforts, the realm was too fragmented among powerful magnates. After the death of Charlemagne's son, Louis the Pious, about 1814 to 1840, fighting broke out between his sons and the empire was partitioned, which led to even greater fractionalization and weakness. In the late 9th and 10th centuries, waves of Vikings, Magyars, Saracens all attacked Western Europe. Local populations came to be more dependent than ever on local strongmen for security. The Middle Ages were characterized by a chronic absence of effective central government and a constant threat of famine or foreign invasion. Feudal society is a term used to describe the adjustments to this breakdown of centralized government. Feudal society is a social order in which a local lord is dominant, and the highest virtues are those of trust and fidelity. In the 6th and 7th centuries, individual freemen put themselves under the protection of more powerful freemen. The term vassalage means the placement of oneself in the personal service of another who provides protection in return. To support his growing army, a lord would grant land, called a benefice or fief, on which vassals were to dwell and maintain themselves. Vassalage involved fealty to the lord, promising to refrain from any action that might threaten the lord's well-being and to perform personal services for him, of which the chief service was military duty as a mounted knight. As the centuries passed, personal loyalty became secondary to the acquisition of property. Free men swore allegiance to the highest bidder, a development that signaled the waning of feudal society. Serfs were farmers who attended the lord's lands. They were subject to dues in kind, and their discontent is registered by several recorded escapes. The alternative might involve death at the hands of the invaders or the loss of all possessions and a lifetime of military service to the king. Many preferred to join a monastery or surrender their land to a local lord in exchange for security. The chapter closes with a section on medieval children. There is much evidence to suggest that parents remained emotionally distant from their children. Infanticide was especially directed against girls, and parental neglect was common among Germanic tribes. Still, there is primary evidence which reveals close personal bonds between parents and children and indicates that children were widely viewed as special creatures with their own needs and rights.